Most Mario series music before Nintendo 64 had distinctly identifiable melody lines, consistent with the era's linear level design conventions. But Mario 64 fundamentally rewrote the rules of how Mario games work, and the track Dire Dire Docks has the nuance and majesty worthy of this paradigm shift. The intro sequence expresses chords in arpeggio form. Instead of hitting all the notes in the chord at once, you spread the notes out to articulate each tone individually. The notes are spread out on this watery canvas to surround Mario on all sides, among the level's many possibilities and the routes to take and the objectives to complete. But notice how it always reaches the 1 up at the peak, regardless of which chord's underneath. It reliably pulses the 1 up top the way a lighthouse helps you find your bearings in the seas. Now, Sonic Advance's snow level also doubles as a water level, and the composer might have been familiar with Dire Dire Docks because these chord arpeggios climb upward with a similar 1-5-1-2-3-1, and with that similar lighthouse beacon effect. But the lighthouse note shifts down with each chord as they progress. Considering that what you just heard was the Mario cadence chords, this level's music has itself a rather adorable identity crisis. While Dire Dire Docks stands strong with its own distinct mission statement, which is unafraid to stray from the rest of the soundtrack's conventions, including the bold choice to omit drums from the song's opening moments, because most Mario tunes kick off the drums in the starting measure. But 3D swimming was in its infancy, and this minimal arrangement with a single instrument layer has the tranquility of those baby mobiles with a music box built in. Entering the water activates a string section for the peaceful serenity of the open seas, toning down the more obvious energy found in so many other levels. Because a track like Bob-omb Battlefield has melodies that bustle with activity, with an average of about 8 notes struck per measure. But this Dire Dire melody on strings has an average note per measure closer to just 1. So take your time, soak in the sights, get familiar with the swimming controls, because when you do plunge downward, there's plenty to discover. In the middle of the song, we're treated to a diatonic chord walkdown of 4-3-2-1, which water level historians may notice is featured prominently in Sonic 1's Labyrinth Zone. In Dire Dire Docks, these chords descend toward the ocean floor. But the next walkdown pans out differently. Danger rears its head with an ominous 1 diminished chord, so Mario just rides the circle of fifths back to the safety of the 1. We even see Mario swim down and back up the Mario cadence chords. The drums finally kick in later, when you surface in the treasure cave or the submarine depot. Getting here requires figuring out the swimming controls, so this smooth beat is a subtle reward to propel you forward with confidence. It even makes that supposedly menacing 1 diminished chord a lot less intimidating. During Mario's nimble pole hopping, the song grows so confident that the drums sprinkle in little tricks, like a syncopated pull on every 4th ride cymbal. And during these acrobatics, the kick drum sounds like Mario's heartbeat more than ever. And the most tension is built up during a 5-to-1 chord sequence, at which time the 4 adds to the firepower. The 5 chord is already pretty strong, what with the 7 and 2's projected motion back to the 1. But you can stack that chord even higher with the 4, which brings magnets into play. You know how there's that magnet that always wants to pull the 7 back to the 1? Well, there's another important magnet that wants to pull the 4 to the 3. The listener expects that 3, so the composer could deliver or subvert. The title theme to Diddy Kong Racing delivers after a quick silent pause. So in Dire Dire Docks, it pulses that 4 to build up tension while Mario tries to escape the pull of underwater cyclones. It does finally land on the 1 chord, which contains the 3, so we're good. But the instrument voices only deliver the 3 indirectly. The keyboard that gave us the 4 doesn't give us the 3 immediately, and even a non-chord tone 2 shows up before it. That 3 is just one note of many, almost hidden among this school of fish. And we do get the 3 immediately on the strings, but it's an octave higher. Mario does have to pop up for air at some point. Funny how your health fully replenishes when you surface, even if most of your damage was from hazards and enemies, because the game uses the same gauge for health and air. But that oddity is overshadowed by this track's pure majesty, written by Mario series composer Koji Kondo. After graduating in 1984, he applied to just one job, at a company where he still works today. At first, sound team members had to double as programmers, composing music by manually entering notes into the computer, not to mention creating all sound effects. But with the N64 hardware, the programming work became too complex, so it was delegated to a separate sound specialist. For the first time, Kondo could focus entirely on the composition side, and perhaps that helped him spread his wings, composing tracks that mark a departure from previous underwater themes in the series. Cause up until now, water stages were all about the waltz, composed in 3/4 time with its distinctive n-det-det, n-det-det. In the first Mario game, it's a graceful aquatic anthem. And Super Mario World's underwater theme waltzifies the main melody that most of the level themes are based off. This storied history of underwater waltzes makes Triple B's cover of Dire Dire Docks all the more riveting, because it adapts the track to a 1-2-3-1-2-3 time signature instead of the original's 4/4. And in the 4-3-2-1 walkdown, he made the 1 chord into a 1/7 chord, which includes the normal tones of the 1 chord, plus a 7th, and you can hear it yearning to return to the 1, but there it stays tethered to that 7. What we have here is a cover that respects the original composition, but makes the song do fascinating things that it hadn't done before, such as these syncopated staccato jabs and riding that Mixolydian trickle-down. But for all the song's captivating beauty, it's not exactly a feel-good time to raise your spirits, and for players like Wackablady, Mario 64 is a lonely game. There's minimal spoken dialogue, in a castle that's mostly empty, except for identical Toad servants. They provide text-based how-tos, or out of nowhere a post-it note appears to say, "This is the Metal Cap course." Wackablady elaborates on the game's intended beauty about going on a quest alone. Cause yeah, sometimes it all comes down to just you. But growing comfortable with solitude and moderation can help you better find life's metaphorical stars. It worked for Mario. But this tone of melancholic peace didn't carry over to the rest of the series or its peers. Because 2 years later, co-host in your backpack, in busy environments, characters with comedic chemistry, even the collectibles talk to explain how they work. And Kirk Hopeville is no stranger to underwater arpeggios.